Hello, I'm Donald McCauley and welcome to this BMJ Leader conversation. Today I'm talking to Helen Bevan. Now, Helen used to have one of the trendiest job titles I've ever heard of, Chief Transformation Officer. And you know what, I even heard her described as the world's leading social influencer, the world influencer on social media and global healthcare. Helen, tell me, what do you really do?
I have a great life because I'm at the stage and age in my career that I can choose what I want to do and what I don't want to do. So I've spent 30 years as an internal change agent in the National Health Service in England. And over the last few months, I've changed. So I still work as part of the NHS for a little bit of my time, but the rest of my time I work with a lot of different organisations and systems supporting large-scale change. So most of my work is still in the UK, but I get to work with healthcare systems in a lot of other interesting places. And essentially, what I do is I work with leaders and systems that want to change the way that they're doing things, want care to be better. And essentially, what I focus on is the how of change, because very often, leaders are very clear about what they want to do, the areas that they want to focus on, the kind of care that they want to make better. But I think the real issue is, how do you make big change happen in a system? And we can have all the plans and the program management systems in the world, but this is a complex system made up of people with different goals and ambitions and priorities. So when you're trying to make change happen in people systems, I think it's a lot trickier than the transformation plan or the program plan would say.
So is there a formula? Are there 3 steps we need to take in any change?
I think that there are things that we should always do. First of all, think about who are the people who are going to be impacted by the change or need to be part of the change, and start working with those people right from the beginning of the change. And the second thing I think we have to do is we have to create a sense of, I would say, our shared purpose. So the our is like, who are the people? And the shared is what unites us. And, we will often be very, very different people with different perspectives, different levels of power, and different levels of privilege. But we have to find the things, around change that bring us together. And then purpose, our shared purpose. So, what are we trying to do here? What are we trying to change? And how does it connect with the things that really matter with people? And then the other thing I'd say is that, I think there's different ways that we can do change. We can do change to people, we can do change for people, we can do change with people, and we can have change that's done by people. And, in my 30 years, the one thing that I have learned more than any other is that if you do change with people or by people, it's so much more successful than if you do change to people or for people. And, I look at so many health and care systems now where we're doing change for people, like senior leaders are, creating the change program and telling people what the change is going to be. And very often it's done with a really, really good intention. But every time you do change for people, it feels like it's imposed. It feels like it's being done to people, and people are going to resist it. So, I don't think there's any kind of formula of change, like, here are the 8 steps of transformation. But I do think that there are ways that we can go about it, and ways that we can think about change. And there are ways that we can act our own behaviours as leaders of change, that, working with integrity and building trust, that are absolutely universal.
I'm absolutely fascinated by what you do. I mean, that is some job description, but I don't remember hearing that job when I was at Careers Advice. How do you get to this position in life?
It's interesting because I've never done anything apart from be a change agent. I've never been a clinician. I've never been a kind of a typical managerial job, I've always been a change agent. So I did a first degree in social science, and then I started to be a change agent. So basically I've done the same thing for years, and like 2 decades. I've done the same job for 2 decades. Like, maybe I end up doing it at a more senior level, but yeah, it's who I am and what I do, and I must like doing it because I just kept doing it. And sometimes it's really, really difficult being a change agent in a system. And I think actually it's probably one of the most misunderstood jobs ever, because sometimes people in very senior roles, they want to make change happen very quickly. So here's our program plan, we have to deliver this by a certain point in time. So when people like me come along and say, well, actually we need to take our time because we need to engage people, and we need to work with people at the point of care, and we need to work with people that use services, and we've got to do this at the beginning to create strong foundations. Very often people that are senior leaders that are trying to make things happen will see this as like soft and pink and fluffy and not hard and tough. And then other times when you're trying to make a change happen that people don't necessarily isn't meaningful to people, then you can get a lot of resistance and reactance to the change. So yeah, it can be a pretty tricky job. But one of the things that I learned a very long time ago is that actually the people that are the best change agents aren't necessarily the people with the formal power that can cascade or push change down from the system. The people that are the best change agents are the people that build relationships and connections. So much of effective change is about relationships and collaboration and trust. And you there's no shortcuts to that. You've got to take the time. You've got to take the time to build it. So I was a chief transformation officer before it was even like trendy or fashionable, and I just kept on being one. Yeah, it's a pretty cool thing to be.
Well, I wouldn't like anyone to think that, as you described, this is a career of change, because you haven't actually stopped. And what I'm interested in, you're a fabulous communicator. People listening to this will realize how good you are one-to-one. I've heard you at conferences and you're fantastic. But actually, you've moved further than that. You're looking at the future of communication. I'm really interested in what you're doing with social media and how we communicate in the future and how we're going to get these messages across.
In any change situation, you have the formal system and the informal. So the formal system, people with the formal authority that can command or are held account for the change in a formal way. And then you get the informal system, the people who are the informal influencers who actually are very significantly able to influence other people. So again, there's this whole new branch of thinking and practice called social analytics. And what social analytics does, it helps us to understand who are the influencers. So in a typical organization, what social analytics tells us is that there's around 3% of people in an organization who will drive 85% of the communication and the connection that's going on. So if you're a senior leader that wants to make some change happen, actually the quickest way of doing it isn't to try and drive it or cascade it down. The quickest way to make change happen is to find the informal influencers. And if you want to push change or drive change from the top of an organization, okay, it takes 4 times more people than if you actually work through the social influencers. And the same is true when it comes to wider social influence. And the ratio is quite similar in the sense that studies that have been done in health and care show that 85%, if you look at Twitter, for instance, 85% of content that gets retweeted comes from just 3% of people who influence. So again, if you want to get messages out, find those super connectors and those influencers. I mean, the really big influencers are people like Rachel Clark, Dr. Clark, Trish Greenholm, David Oliver, and like things that they say. And again, because they're people that are well trusted and respected in the system, they are hugely influential. So, if I'm in a situation where I want to help to make change happen, say across the National Health Service in England, if I'm doing work, say in primary care improvement, what I'll do is I'll go and I'll do the social analytics, and I'll find the people who are the key influencers on social media in primary care, and I'll find those people and I'll link up with them. And you can't do this like some great blunderbuss, or let's just put the message out there and sometimes it'll happen, because that's not the nature of it. And then so Twitter's great, okay, for certain audiences. So for instance, again, if you were doing primary care improvement, there's a fantastic group of primary care activists who are brilliant at connecting and communicating. The same in my world, which is health and care improvement. But it's not right for every audience. And one of the things I'd say is, like, very few people under the age of 35 are on Twitter. Okay, where are the the clinicians in training? Where are the young health and care managers? They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. So we've got to be on, we've got to be there, as well, because it's where the world is going. So of course, we have to do all this, the formal stuff and the broadcast communication, where we're putting messages down on people. It has its place, but increasingly, okay, change communication is becoming much more relational, and it's happening in different places, and it's becoming less synchronous, in a sense of come to this meeting at a particular time live, and it's becoming much more asynchronous. So yeah, the world's changing, and we have to go with it.
Helen, that's been terrific. Thank you very much. Now, I have one final question, and that's the hardest question of all. And that is, when we look at the NHS, it looks pretty broken. How would you change it?
I don't think there's any miracle cures for the NHS. However, when I look back from 1948 onwards, what we've seen in the whole history of the NHS is just how amazing and resilient and responsive our NHS people are. So, I'd say all the ideas, all the talent, all the perspective are there in our system already. And we have to work with that, and we have to enable that, and we have to create the space. And in a sense, it's almost it's paradoxical, because everybody's so busy, nobody's got time to think. And yet, if we look at the organisations in the NHS that actually do the best, they're the places where the leaders are actually understanding we've got to make time and space for connecting and communicating and learning and sharing together. So I don't think there's any one magic answer, but I do think that, yeah, the answers are there in our people, as they've always been.
Helen, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. Thank you very much indeed.